Hey guys, what's going on? I've had a lot of people message me, text me, hit me up on social media wanting to know how to sell antlers, how they can make sure they get the best deal on their antler and they don't get taken. So that's what this video is all about. How to sell your antlers, do it the right way, and make sure you're not getting ripped off. So check it out. So basically, to start off with, well, that makes my guns look big. My camera angle helping me out, check it out. Basically, there's 3 grades of antler that most buyers will typically do. What a grade is a condition rating. Antlers are all pretty much sold by the pound based on condition. Most buyers will give you 1 of 3 grades. A grade, which is brown antler, B grade, which is hard white, and C grade, which is chalk. So I'm gonna go through those different grades, kind of show you what the differences are between them, and so you can know that you're being graded fairly on your antler. A lot of buyers will do a 4th grade. That's a junk grade. That's for the really chalky, split out, pink kind of garbage antlers. If you only have a few of those, your buyer should probably just give you chalk price for them. If that's all you have, you might expect to get a lower price. So deer and elk are kind of graded a little bit differently, at least from my perspective, what I've seen buying and selling antlers. So I'm gonna give you guys a walkthrough on the differences between those. So we're gonna start out with some brown elk. And I have some right here perfectly set up for this video that I did all the planning for. This is a brown elk shed. This is A grade elk. So this will be your highest price antler, at least the way prices are right now. It's a freshly dropped antler, at least it didn't sit out in the sun too long. So this typically grade A. Right now, as I'm making this video, these are going for about $14 a pound. It just kind of depends though on the area, depends on the buyer. These go up and down all the time, so these are all subject to change. So if you're watching this video, don't hold your buyer to these prices necessarily, but they change a lot. So something to notice about this antler right here. This antler is a little bit more faded on the one side than it is on the other. That still counts as a brown antler. As long as there's no cracks in it, as long as it doesn't have any roughness to it, you know, it's still a brown antler. A lot of buyers, if they're faded on the one side, even if there's no cracks, will try to tell you that that's a hard white antler, but you wanna make sure you get brown grade for that kind of an antler. Grading is the place that you will lose or gain the most money in an antler buying transaction, or antler selling transaction. It's the easiest place for a buyer to take advantage of people that he's buying from, or to make sure that they're taken care of, because it's totally subjective. But you, as the seller, have the right to negotiate that grade. If there's an antler that you don't feel like went the way you want it to go, you can talk to him about it, ask him why it went to that grade, and if you don't want to sell it, pull that one out and hang on to it. So that's something that you should know as well. This here is B grade elk, hard white. So some of the characteristics of this, and I'm going to show you up close. This still has a fairly decent coloring to it. It's still brown on one side. This side, however, is faded. It still has decent coloring as well. This is about as borderline as they get. This technically, if it didn't have some of the little teeny hairline cracking on it, would probably go to a brown antler. But just those little cracks right there make this one a hard white. So hard white can have some cracks in it as long as they're not big open cracks. It's still a solid antler. It's, you know, got one side good and brown on it, or the whole thing can really be white, but the main thing you're looking for is cracks. They can be there, they just don't want them to be big and open and covering the entire antler, because then it has a possibility of being a chalk antler. So that's hard white. Hard white right now, as we're filming this, I think we're paying is about $9.50, $10 a pound. This is a chalk antler. So it's white all over. This one even has some pink to it. That doesn't happen everywhere. I've noticed that a lot more in the desert states. They'll go totally pink sometimes. If you pick up a really old antler, it'll be fluorescent pink. But this is flaky. I mean, it's dusty. It doesn't feel solid. And you can see right here, it's rough, the texture, and it has big open cracks covering the entire antler. That's a chalk antler. And as we film this, I think chalk's going for $3 or $4 a pound. So that's elk. Junk grade is anything probably significantly worse condition than that antler there. Totally pink, split out, whatever. So onto the deer. This is a brown deer antler. Same story as with elk. Good color, no cracks. This is a little bit more faded on the one side, still counts as a brown antler. This is a fresh one that my buddy Dell picked up. That's brown. Brown deer right now I think is about 10 bucks a pound, maybe a little more. This here is a hard white. As you can see, similar to elk, it's got a good one solid side on it with no cracking. This side is white and it does have some very, very small cracks on it. I still consider it a hard white. I have noticed that the grading on deer antlers is a little bit more strict than it is on elk antlers. I think that just has to do with the market and the ease of selling deer versus elk. I think it's a little bit easier to move elk antlers. So that's kind of the reason I think for the difference in grading. But it seems like you do get graded a little bit harsher on your deer than you do on your elk. And this is a chalk antler. So it still has one side that's, you know, decently hard, has some cracks and things like that on it. But you see the big wide open cracks, the flakiness, a little bit of pink to it. That's a chalk deer antler. So those are the three basic grades between deer and elk. Now the other thing we should talk about is trophy quality stuff. If you get anything that's in that next level size range, like an elk over possibly the 370 mark, a match set or a big single, there are buyers who will pay you premium price for bigger type antlers. That's just something that you have to ask the individual buyer that you work with. And remember that if they don't want to buy it for extra, you don't have to sell it to them for poundage. You can just pull that antler aside, keep it, and you can attempt to find a collector or someone who's interested in it, maybe the person who found the other side, and sell it for a more than poundage price. Just because it's worth more doesn't necessarily mean it's worth more to that buyer. It's up to them whether or not they want to give you an additional amount for that antler. Some won't, some will. It just depends on the market that they have for resale of those antlers. Big elk are a little bit harder to sell. Has to do with the shipping. Also, I think it has to do with the prevalence of ranch bulls. There's a lot of elk that are grown on farms, and so these gigantic sets aren't as rare as they used to be. So all that factors into whether or not you're gonna get a premium price for your elk antler. Mule deer, like this one, are a little bit easier to sell. The reason being they're easier to ship, and also there's no farm raised mule deer around. So a giant single like this one here is a very rare thing, and it comes off of a wild animal, you can be sure. So people will pay a premium price for a big deer shed. Anything over 90 inches is a typical, probably is worth a premium price. Anything really over 80 inches is a typical. If it's in good condition, hard white or brown, you should be able to get a little bit more than poundage for. And then anything big or cool could be worth more to a collector. This antler here scores 108 inches. It's off an Idaho buck. Somebody, I don't know what they were thinking, chopped the eye guard and chopped a cheater off of it. I don't know if they were gonna repair it or if they didn't know what it was and tried to use it for jewelry. I don't know what they were doing, but that devalued this antler quite a bit. Trophy quality stuff like this is worth a fair amount of money, but there's antler sales pages on Facebook. So if you have something big, trophy quality antler, you want to sell, that's the best place to go with it. Just kind of gauge the value on it, because it's hard to say. People also sell them on eBay. You can jump on there and look at some of the price comparisons and kind of see what it's worth. I know a lot more about mule deer and elk than I do about whitetail, obviously, just because we don't have them around here where I live. So if you guys want to know the market on whitetail, you'll probably have to find a buyer who has a little bit more experience. Anything big and trophy quality though tends to be worth more money. Let me pull these ones down. So this is elk side. This is actually one that was recolored. A buddy of mine went through and did their coloration job on it. I have the other side up there as well. This bull pushes 390. That's why I had him restored. As a chalk antler, a chalk set, he wasn't worth a whole lot, so I decided to restore him so that I could get a little bit more sentimental value, really. They're not worth as much. And that's another thing you guys should know. If you choose to stain or color your antlers, if you add paint or stain or whatever it is to them, you're not gonna increase the value, you're gonna decrease it almost 100% of the time. And that's because it takes away all of the uses for which an antler buyer is buying your antler. So most of the antlers nowadays are made into dog chews, or they're ground into supplements, and you can't do any of that if it has any sort of foreign material on it, any sort of stain, lack, or anything like that. So don't stain them unless you're just gonna keep them and hang on to them. Guys try all the time to color them up to get better grading on their antlers. That's just dishonest. If the buyer catches you doing that, they won't buy your antler, and they'll make sure that everybody else around knows that you do that kind of stuff, and you won't be able to get a good price for your antler. It's that simple, so be honest about it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to cover on antler buying. Most antler buyers will pay you cash money right then. Some will write you a check. It just depends. The buyer that you deal with, how comfortable you are with them, if you're okay taking a check from them or not. Most of them will give you a receipt. And the other thing when you deal with the buyer is it's okay to double check their math and make sure they added it right. That's good for both parties. You'll never meet a buyer that I don't think that will get mad at you for double checking their math, because the odds are, you know, if they got it wrong, it could be hurting them as much as it's hurting you, or, you know, it could go either way. The other thing is if you get to the end of the sale, if you get to the end of the deal, you look at the total on that paper that they give you, and you don't think that's worth it, you have the right to walk away at any time. People think of antler buying kind of as a one-way thing where one guy sets the price and the other person has to take the price. Well, it's more of a negotiation than that. When you go to sell your car, you don't let the person just show up and name their price and take your car, right? It's the same way. You can negotiate with buyers. You might not get what you feel like your antler is worth, but you have every right to walk away and say, I'm gonna hang on to it for that price. So when people say, oh, I got taken advantage of by that buyer, it's up to you to make sure that that doesn't happen. Make sure you're being graded fairly, and make sure that you're getting the price that you should get. Shop around, call other buyers, but most importantly, make sure that you feel good at the end of the transaction. If you don't feel like it's enough, talk to the guy and say, it's not quite what I was hoping for. What can we do? If it worked, I mean, he might negotiate with you on price, he might just say, sorry, that's the price. And then it's up to you to decide, do I walk away or do I keep them, or what do I want to do? But be assertive about it, don't get bullied. Most of the buyers nowadays have to compete with a large number of other buyers. So they're pretty honest guys and straight up guys. They have to be, or else their reputation gets smashed into the ground. There are guys out there that have lousy reputations, and just stay away from those guys. It's that simple. You can price check them and see where they're at, but all the antler people find an antler and sell an antler talk all the time. So if a buyer has a bad reputation, there's probably a reason why. Anyway, I hope I haven't beat this topic into the ground. It's something that I'm passionate about. I love antlers. That's why I can talk for an hour just about antlers. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. I'll reply back. If you guys want to know anything about different types of antlers, there are a lot of exotics and specialty antlers. Moose, caribou, all that stuff, and they all have a different price. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about this video, if you liked it, if it was informative, if it was helpful, or if you thought it was boring. Thanks, guys.